Evening, folks. Brian here, Geomagnetic Earthwatch on Thursday, December 28, 2023 on our planet. Hope you're all well. This video was actually intended for yesterday. Had a lot of problems getting it uploaded, so I'm going to do it again. We need to keep on talking about the effects of, let's call it cosmic radiation on our planet and its inhabitants, both us humans and animals. I must constantly remind people that our protective magnetic field is continuing to destabilize, deteriorate, and weaken, resulting in increased levels of these different wavelengths of radiation being absorbed, coming in through our atmosphere, penetrating through our crust, as well as into our brains, through our skin, and even through our pupils. So two things. We have chronic long-term exposure, however, being accelerated. We also have acute penetration, such as during the flash event from a solar flare. That which we can see, that which I show you on my videos, on the satellite images. So that flash of X-rays and radio waves traveling at the speed of light only takes 8 minutes to reach us. And if that flare is strong enough, let's say mid-range M class and above, a lot of us do feel it, have been feeling it, reporting that you've been feeling it. Problems. A lot of us cannot adapt quick enough to the increase in solar activity and the increase, what I call absorption of that solar energy. Now, I know some of you other people have been watching me because you're copying a lot of what I say. That's perfectly fine. Sharing is good. Sharing is kind. Sharing is fun. Share the information. So our physical or physiological reorientation is trying to adapt right down to the cellular level, right down to the DNA. Cannot keep up. For some of us we can adapt. And again, knowledge is also key. Unfortunately, others are just a lot weaker. However, through the process of change and adaptation, we're feeling a lot of body aches and pains, headaches, tinnitus, ringing in the ears, extreme fatigue, and insomnia. Even me. Not just for the reasons that I have an autistic daughter I have to take care of, and I only get 4 hours sleep at nighttime. I get another 2 hours sleep in the afternoon, but I pick a different area of the house, away from any windows, away from any ultraviolet radiation. And I reorientate myself, and I find that 2 hours sleep, I go right into a deep REM state. I have a very good sleep. So my previous video was only a suggestion. Try it yourself. It's not just alignment with magnetic field lines. It's not just cosmic radiation. It is the ultraviolet radiation, and I'll get into that either in this video or another one. And we just become more irritable, easily triggered, oversensitive. Some people get more salty, no control over their emotions, as Spock would say. So yes, another thing is to watch out for the animals. The magnetic alignment is a spontaneous behavioral expression of magnetoreception that appears particularly in resting animals, their body orientation, when it's not controlled by other factors like stormy weather, winds, etc. But they're getting confused. I'll give you another example. Nate, Canadian prepper, his short video he just posted about the geese misguided confused. I have my personal reasons for not following the Canadian prepper. One of which is he is a pro-man-made global warming pusher. And when someone believes in man-made global warming for everything that's happening, they are so out of the loop. But he did bring up a very good point in his observations in Saskatchewan, and he did a short video, and therefore I put it on my Facebook page. Let's get back to solar flares. So radiation is emitted across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Soft X-rays, hard X-rays, radio waves, ultraviolet radiation, gamma rays, all of it. And again, during the initial hit, 8 minutes after that solar flare, we get hit with the hard X-rays. Now, solar flare can last several minutes to several hours. That could be up to several hours of that hard hit X-ray, electromagnetic radiation that hits us. So this brings up a point I want to bring to your attention. How and when are we going to know when a large enough, substantial X-class flare pops off? Your brain is going to tell you. You want to see some examples of what your brain's going to tell you? And so, like, what are you going to feel? You're just going to be totally confused? Or are you going to get that sudden stabbing pain in the temporal region, ringing in the ears, or even worse, pow, is your brain just going to explode? So I like to throw in these visualizations every once in a while. In case you get bored of looking at my George Clooney lookalike face. Fashion shows. You ever heard of Dr. Tamitha Skov, a space weather woman? I like watching her. Not her. I like watching her videos. She's here in the audience, folks. I don't know why she subscribed to my channel. I'm not too sure why. Maybe it's that George Clooney lookalike looks like it. Maybe it's my fashion shows. I'm not too sure. So getting back. So normally, the normal background level of X-rays, radiation, outside our atmosphere, it's measured in the tens of units of what's called watts per meter square. To give you an example of just how hard that we can get hit, on October 28th, 2021, there was a long duration X1.0 flare. It started at 1517 UTC hours and lasted until 1548 UTC, 31 minutes flare. That was from region 2887. So my time where we were, it was actually in the morning. All of a sudden, my wife, sudden stabbing, ringing in the ears, tinnitus. Now, she also has a brain tumor on her brainstem, vestibular schwannoma. But she went right to the wall of the bedroom to brace herself, to prevent herself from falling down to the floor, quite literally. So I picked her up and put her in the bed. And after checking her vitals, I knew exactly what happened. Exactly. So I pulled out my smartphone and went to the Space Weather app, and yep, sure enough, at that time that I checked my phone, the reading was 7,397 watts per meter square of radiation that was hitting us When it actually hit us a couple of minutes prior, I'm quite sure it is close to the 10,000 watts per meter square. Not 10, not in the tens. Close to 10,000 watts. That was from an X1 flare. That was the southern hemisphere, directly Earth facing. So what level should we be concerned about? First, people, forget about that nonsense. Forget about that fear porn nonsense about X1000 flares and X28,000 flares. We gotta stay focused in reality and the here and the now. Me personally, what do I watch out for? Just me personally. I'm not talking Carrington class events. We know what these mid-level to upper-level M-class flares are doing to us right now. I would start to be overly concerned starting at the X5 level. I'm not talking about taking down the grid level. I'm talking about, in this talk, about the effects on us humans, our brains. X1, yes, for those who are weaker. But when we start getting up to around the X5 range, in my personal opinion, that's what I consider. That's what I look for. So that's one type of radiation, 8 minutes. Sometimes, most of the time, not always, there's the following coronal mass ejections which create the geomagnetic storms, and these are the clouds of the plasma gas carrying the billions of tons of highly charged particles in the magnetic field. Those can take anywhere from 15 to 72 hours to reach us. And again, the CMEs triggers the geomagnetic storms when coming in contact with Earth's magnetic field. And this induces currents, such as I showed you during the hydro lines in front of my house, to flow through conductors like wires, through the Earth's crust, and through our own neural circuits, our own neural pathways. So I'm going to show you another pictorial that I like to use, the smoking gun. So I like to use this picture example of the firearm to describe the process of flare and the following coronal mass ejection from the sun. So our firearm here is the actual sun. The muzzle flash is the flare. This is what we see on the SDO satellite imagery that I show you. So the bright flash is the flare. If there's produced coronal mass ejection, it will be the cloud of gas being expelled from the muzzle of the gun, hurled in any direction, depending on whether it's earth facing or not. So this gas contains hundreds of billions of tons of the highly charged particles in the magnetic field. So this wider example here could be an example of a halo CME. But in this pictorial, this is an example of an Earth-directed CME. So once again, muzzle flash is the flare that we see. This is what we feel traveling at the speed of light, reaching us in 8 minutes, if large enough. The coronal mass ejection, if it's from an X-class flare, and if it's Earth-directed, it can take only 8 to 12 hours to reach us. Otherwise, M-class flares or even upper-level C-class flares take an average of 15 to 72 hours to reach us. The smoking gun, I hope you understood that. So let's go back to how these solar events affect us. And I go through this list lots and lots of times. I'm happy to repeat myself. I'm not in it to make the money by saying go look at the playlists. Neurological. This is what we're going to expect even more. Our headaches and our migraines, including those not normally predisposed to having headaches and migraines. The frontal compression, the temporal stabbing, the dizziness, the vertigo, the feeling of unwell, the tinnitus, ringing in the ears from the radiation storms that we get, ringing in the ears from the hard x-rays hits from the bright flash of the solar flares. I'm going to stop for a moment. So a lot of professionals, they like to see peer-reviewed papers from their fellow professionals before they start believing in such things. They like to see studies. People, we are our own test subjects and studies. We do not need to seek out peer-reviewed papers, even though I do. But some people may be constrained. Maybe they're not permitted to speak of such things, depending on who their employer is and where their paychecks come from. You know what I mean? I also feel joint pains, gastrointestinal disturbances, sensory issues on our skin, heart issues, neuropsychological, perhaps even more important. Our mood swings, irritable, argumentative. We can have racing thoughts through our brains. We can't sort through them all, or can come to a sudden stop and brain fogs. Blanking out, irrational, elevated anxiety, behavioral changes. We become very easily triggered, which is challenging even for those of us who know. We know it can trigger us. We have that knowledge, so we know what to do to try and control our emotions and our tempers. Violence, rage, increased admission to psych units and hospitals, increased incidence of suicides, unfortunately. It also affects our cognitive abilities. So our cognitive abilities is learning, memorizing, speech, problem solving, reasoning with people. All these things can be affected. And as I so often repeat myself, increased levels of anxiety, especially with our mentally health challenged people. With autistic spectrum disorder, ADHD, schizophrenia, what's another one? Hyperthymesia. Which can be associated with people with OCD. I'll keep that for a separate video. So finally, when we're going to get hit with a substantial, hard impact from an X-flare, you're going to have 8 to 12 hours warning. We are going to have 8 to 12 hours warning, because any CME generated traveling at over 1,200 kilometers per second, the average solar wind speed is anywhere from 250 to 350 kilometers per second. will hit us in 8 to 12 hours, not 15 to 72 hours. If the initial X-ray hit and radio blackout hasn't already partially taken out the more sensitive areas of the grids, you know you only have 8 to 12 hours to prepare. Don't wait for instructions. Don't wait for guidance. Don't wait for the emergency broadcast system to go off on your smartphone. Don't wait for it. Get your ass moving. Get it in gear. Fill up your bathtubs and sinks and any containers you have full of water, for example, before the grid goes down and doesn't operate the pumps to drive the water to all the neighborhoods and houses and everything. Get to the ATMs and get cash out. Not that it's going to do you any good. Gas stations to fill up your cars. Top off all your food preps and everything else. And I can go on and on and on, but that's a separate video. The government is not going to tell you. They may use the emergency broadcast system as a means of telling you to go somewhere, to a corral to keep you contained, whatever. My point in this video is your brain is going to tell you. You're going to feel it. When you get a sharp stabbing, wow, where did that come from? That really hurt, man. I feel dizzy. I don't like I want to fall down. Maybe I'm going to throw up. Go to one of the space weather apps, websites, spaceweatherlive.com, SolarAM, NOAA, whatever, to get confirmation. They might not put that data out right away. But that's your first indication we just got hit hard with the radio wave, the X-rays, and something might be right behind it. That's it for now.